Hello, everybody. We are live with a live stream, two live streams in one here, because President Trump just had a meeting with the governor of Iowa, who still has not shut down her state at all, even though there's 10,000 cases, so that's worked out. Yesterday, they had a 3% growth in her state, 300 plus new cases, and she hasn't shut down anything. So, Republican, oddly enough. So we're going to go over that meeting first, and then we have Kayleigh Mcenany doing a press conference and blaming the media for everything. Now, I haven't seen much of this. In fact, really the only thing I've seen is the very end of the Kayleigh Mcenany press conference where she attacks the media, and we're going to go over those articles that she attacks point by point. We're also going to play the part where she said the coronavirus, that Trump would never allow the coronavirus to come into our country. 1 million plus cases. I haven't even looked at how many cases are on there. Hold on, let's check that. Right now, we are looking at, in the United States, 1,256,669. I'm going to pull that over here because if you're like me, you'll notice right away, 666, Trump 2020. All right, I'm assuming somebody's in the chat room by now. Let's take a look. If you're here in the chat room, say hi. That way I know that the broadcast is actually up and running. I can get going with the coverage. We're going to watch the first thing on C-SPAN. The second thing, we're going to switch over to Fox because the C-SPAN feed kept pausing on me, so we're going to try and get back there. And if you'd like to support this broadcast, as the scroll says here, go to KevinlyFather.com. That's that you can contribute to me your hard-earned monies or the free government money. In fact, why don't we all do this? I think a great way to teach Trump a lesson is to take that $1,200 he sent to you and send it to me. You didn't receive your 12? Yeah, neither did Kevin daughter. And the website doesn't work at all. And I tried the all caps trick. Thank you very much to those of you who have suggested that. It doesn't work. She doesn't exist in the IRS system. And the best I can figure out why, because I did delve into the IRS site, and apparently because I listed her as a dependent 2 years ago, she's not going to get that money, and she's too old for the $500 child tax credit, which somebody pointed out on Twitter the other day. The Republicans are giving you $500 per child, but if you're pregnant, that child does not count as a human being. That's all I'm going to say about that before I start a war. Hey, everybody. Looks like we've got several people in here. Hi, Lynn. Hi, Aldous. Hi, Tyra. Tara. I hope it's Tyra. I never know with you. I never know with the tires and the tires. You're probably already tired of people getting your name wrong. I'm going to call you Tyra, and hello. And this broadcast today is brought to you by the patrons. Let's see, the ones on the list today are Linda R., Debbie Troyer, Lizzie Dog, Martha Lever, Rich Mack, Jan Doris, Rick Mackey, two different people, Robin Reister Hearn, Stephanie Biorgi, I hope I got that right, Stephanie, and my friend Rodney. He is the boss. All right, guys, here we go. If you'd like to get on that list, then absolutely, give me money. Go to patreon.com and send it on. Here we go. Let's go over here. This is the president with the governor of Iowa.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Kim.
Yep.
John, go ahead.
Mr. President, I was actually speaking to the governor about this before she came to see you. There's a backlog in terms of live animals, hogs, and beef on the hoof out there. How soon will it be before that can get processed? And we are seeing some.
He's talking about the meat shortage.
Meats in many places across the country. How long will it be before the supply chain gets ramped back up again so that we don't?
So there's been breaks in the supply chain?
Yeah, I think so. We're moving in that direction. As the Secretary said, you've got to think South Dakota's coming back on board. We'll have most of our facilities up and going.
Oh, she sounds like she's from Iowa.
Continue to keep them up and processing and bring more back online and continue to exceed the capacity. We're going to hopefully prevent what could have been a really sorry situation where we were
continue to exceed the capacity
supply and really impacting the food supply not only across the country but throughout the world. And so this is critical infrastructure.
I called this weeks ago, by the way, but
and the team and the effort,
I don't want to toot my own horn.
I think has really maybe prevented what could have been a really serious situation. And so I think, Secretary, would you agree with that? We're still monitoring it. We've turned a corner.
Half of the workers at a meat plant with coronavirus, but they prevented a serious situation.
Affected employees, they won't be full force.
Their Secretary of Agriculture.
We think the stores will be
you'll see more variety and more meat cases fully supplied.
What's your
very
timing?
soon.
What's your timing, son?
I'd say probably a week to 10 days
Yeah,
where
I
it's
agree.
fully back up.
Yeah,
Sonny Purdue?
yeah. I mean, Perry came back up at 60%
That would be great.
capacity, which is really, that's a strong startup.
Mr. President, what the governor's made clear is that it was because the president used the Defense Production Act.
Yeah,
Make it clear that our objective is to keep meat processing plants open, whether it be in Iowa, whether it be in Delaware, whether it be in Colorado.
With or without
And
safety
the Department
standards.
of Agriculture deploying CDC personnel to these meat processing plants.
Vice
We're
President
doing that.
Mike
And I think,
Pounce.
Mr. President, one of the-
Mike
and You
Pounce.
talk to a great heartland governor like Governor Kim Reynolds. One of the great stories of the coronavirus outbreak has been that our food supply has continued to work.
Lynn in the
every
chat
day
room
from
just said
the
toot
field,
away to me.
to
I'm assuming she's referring to
grocers,
tooting my own
meat
horn.
processors.
But the last
And
girl who
thanks
said
to
toot
the
away,
president's decision
I
to
can't,
use
I can't
the
even, I
Protection
can't
Act,
even.
we now have uniform.
We're not together anymore.
The objective is to work every day to keep those meat processing plants open.
I did
And the ones
date
that
a
come
girl
down
for a
are
while
back online.
Yep.
who called them
We're trying to
toots.
keep workers
Oh,
safe and
if you're going to
healthy.
toot,
Yeah.
leave the room, she
And
would
it-
say.
It's in tandem, we've done that. And so with the testing, with the PPE, with the restructuring in the facilities, they're also
It's not
doing
really
a lot of that
germane.
as well, to try to social distance where they can, to put in shields where they can.
Okay,
to look
try
at
and social
lines,
distance where they can, put in
so,
shields
they really-
where they can,
partnership,
and where they
really.
can't,
Kevin,
they're
I
going to
had a good
die.
Talk with the owners of the plants, the top people, big people.
Big
These
people.
are big companies, actually. You wouldn't
Big
believe
people.
how many plants they have. And I think it was a very strong talk. And I
It was a
think they
strong
got the
talk. Was it?
message.
Did you say things strongly?
So within a week and a half, we should be in great shape, maybe sooner.
Another piece of it is, as the price for animals in the hoof has gone down, the price of box beef has really skyrocketed. There's a huge price differential disparity there. Farmers are really hurting, whereas these meatpacking plants are making a lot of money. Is there something that the federal government can do? Farmers are
I've asked
asking.
the Justice Department to look into it, okay? I've asked them to take a very serious look into it because it shouldn't be happening that way. And we want to protect our farmers. But they're looking into that very strongly.
What exactly?
Miss D, why does Vice President
So I've
Pence
asked the
praise
Justice
the
Department to look into it.
Donald Trump so much? Because that's, I mean, that's why he's there.
What's going on? Are they dealing with each other? What's going on? Okay? Because it shouldn't be that way.
It shouldn't be that way, but it is that way. But, you know, nobody could have seen it coming.
Thank you, John. Any other questions?
Are enough steps being taken to protect these
it
workers?
again.
Or are enough steps being taken to protect the health and safety of these workers? The advocates for these workers say they're not being protected. I mean, what was it, 60% infected at the Perry plant, right? I mean, that's extraordinary.
What we've looked at in each of these plants is when we have an outbreak, the CDC deploys a team on the ground. We also worked with the governor and other governors around the country to deploy personal protective equipment to allow the workforce to safely return once testing is done. In most of these meat processing plants, we end up testing everyone in the facility, and the people that are healthy are able to return with new countermeasures and new protection, new face masks or gloves, as the case
If
may be.
they
We're
can.
also working with the companies
If
to put
the-
new
we
countermeasures
just heard the
in
governor
place.
say
As
that.
the Secretary said, our objective is two equal goals. Number one is the safety and health of the workforce.
It's
in our
Kim
meat
Reynolds, by the
processing
way, is the
plants,
governor of Iowa.
And to ensure the strength of the food supply by getting people back to work and keeping.
So
them
Trump
safe.
signed an executive order basically saying,
no, I would completely
hey,
agree
the
with
meat
that.
plants
As
have
I
to
said, I
open
was
back
on a call
up,
with most of
but
them
there's
yesterday.
nothing in
Thank you
there
for the
about
conference
protecting the
call that you
workers.
did. I
And
think
if
this week-
Rachel Maddow's done a wonderful job of covering this lately, if you are a meat packing plant, well, the CDC normally would come in and say, hey, you need to make sure that every one of these workers is 6 feet apart, has the right PPE, is able to have a plexiglass, blah, 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 isn't working opposite somebody at the same place on the line, all of that. Well, the CDC this time, for whatever reason, really tamped down the language quite a bit. So it's a very much best case. If you can, where possible, if you feel like it, on all the safety restrictions. So catch up on Rachel the last couple of nights. About 3 nights ago was Saturday. I don't know what day it is anymore. I have no idea. Just watch Rachel.
Last week with our producers and governors across the country, specifically addressing this processing issue, so I appreciate that very much, Mr. Vice President. Just to ask if they were having any trouble getting the PPE, no, they were fine. We are seeing the supply chain open up. Appreciate what the administration has done to make sure that they have the adequate PPE to protect their employees. This is their teammates. This is an essential workforce. They know how important it is to take care of their workforce, and a big part of it was providing them
That
the
is true.
confidence to go
Without
back to
them,
the
I don't get my
facility
breakfast
knowing
ribs.
that they'd either tested positive and they recovered, or they were on a shift with other employees that had tested negative. And we'll continue to work with them. We've made it very clear if they want to do additional testing, we'll be happy to do that. But they are testing them before they even enter the plant. They're doing a temperature scan. They're doing an assessment. They have to have the mask on when they enter the facility. Many times they have the mask and the face shield. They're doing social distancing. They're relaxing. Their
And they feel
attendance
much better,
policy,
don't they?
and they feel better. Yeah. So it's a partnership. We're all working together to make sure that we're providing them the confidence of a safe environment, but at the same time, we're making
How many
sure
hundreds
that
of
the food
years is
supply
it going to
chain
take
is
governments to
moving
realize that you
and that,
don't
the country
leave
is being
profit
fed,
motive
and we're
Will they
continuing to
be
continue to
moving
into the safety
plexiglass
factors you're
partitions?
So
putting
they are
upon, the
really
regulations
close
that you're putting upon a
working,
business? That being said,
arrangement, and
businesses
so they
want to
are
make money.
trying to separate, I
That's
think,
why they're
with
there.
some additional space
But
between
Trump
the
often
workforce.
brags
So I
that
know it's
he
some of the things
is the
that they're looking
president
at, but
who's
they do
cut
where they
more
can.
regulations than
They
any
put
other
some of
president
the
in both terms,
shields,
in just his
petitions
first
in
term.
place, yeah.
And that's,
Mr. President,
that could be
follow
true.
up on the
You know, who wants
what
safety?
will Dr. Fauci's role be in the task force
Same
going
as it
forward?
is now.
Okay.
He's been doing a very good job. We're very happy with Dr. Fauci, and he'll be doing the same, and Deborah will be doing the same. I know you'll be staying. I hope you'll be staying. We'd miss you otherwise. She's done a fantastic job. Both,
He's talking about people
same.
staying on the
We're
task
actually
force.
just adding some names. We may take off a couple that frankly, their expertise really no longer applies. But,
because
I
we
think
fixed the
Mike, you'll
virus.
announce your names Monday maybe?
Yes, sir.
Or sooner? Good names, and now we have
I knew it.
very,
Oh, he's got good names.
really knows their
A
business.
follow-up on beef. Apparently Wendy's has a shortage.
I'll have to call Nelson Peltz. I'm gonna call Nelson Peltz. They're gonna be okay. They'll be all
They're
right.
focusing on-
Basically, you're saying in a week and a half, you think everything's gonna be good, or sooner. Right, would you make sure, please?
As we speak,
Yeah.
this week, first of next week.
You're gonna have to push them,
Yeah. And they're ramping up capacity, so.
I'm trying to even think where a Wendy's is anymore.
President, you said earlier that when you were talking about winding down the task force, you've heard from a lot of.
If you haven't heard, about 1 out of 5 Wendy's has no beef. That's
Well,
where
I'd
we are
rather
with
not
the
say,
supply chain.
because some of them aren't gonna be able to make it. People wanna be on the task. They wanna be on everything. I've never seen anything like this. Anything having to do with this, they wanna help.
Yeah.
The biggest people, they wanna be on. They wanna be on the committees, they wanna be on the financial committee or the sports committee. I've heard, that's all I do. I get calls from people, the biggest people, they all wanna be on.
That's all he does is take calls from people who want to be on his committees. No time for presidenting. So remember about 2 weeks ago, he was talking about having this committee council to reopen the country, the business council, and he announced a whole bunch of names in the Rose Garden. And none of these people, including the CEO of Pfizer, had any idea that their names were going to be announced to be on this council to reopen America. And rumor has it, because the press has reported, that many of those people said, fuck no, I want no part of a council that's going to tell people to go back to work early, especially in states like Iowa where the numbers are increasing. By the way, the numbers are increasing across the country, but anyway, that's a different story. And so this council that he said everybody wants to be part of, it doesn't exist.
Enemies of mine, people that don't like me, want to be on the committees. I said, that's strange, but they all want to.
Nancy
they all wanna
Pelosi
help.
wants to be on the committee.
So we're going to be announcing some very good names. Now, in this case, we want professional names.
long as
that
they're
can
good
help
names.
us, not just names where we put it on for the status of the task force. We don't need status. We need results.
The man who says every time he quotes somebody, he talks about how great the reputation is. We don't want status.
Source of the virus, you suggested that you had seen some intelligence that gave you some confidence that it somehow emanated from the Institute of Virology. The Secretary of State on Sunday said the same thing. Where are you now on that?
No different. No different.
Have you seen anything else? that gives
No,
you
and I don't think there'll be a big difference. If you ask me that question in 2 months, I don't think there'll be a big difference. I think we know, and I think you probably know too. Okay, any other questions?
Just one follow-up on China, sir. Related to intelligence, but more specifically to how you will respond to China. You've talked about tariffs. Would you like to put tariffs on China as a punishment, or would it be more related to China not actually?
I don't want to talk about that.
Nothing,
We're in
Kathleen.
the midst of some very big things, so I just don't want to talk about that now.
Are you satisfied with China in terms of how it's fulfilling the trade deal, phase one?
I will be able to report on that the end of next week. They're buying a lot of farm product, but are they buying
Which
to
there's a shortage of
the
right
level
now.
that they were supposed to? You know, they were going to buy $50 billion worth. The most they ever did was 15 or 16. And now they're
27.
going to 50. Anywhere between 40 and 50 in terms of farm, but 250 billion overall. That's that never happened. No president has ever even talked about anything like that. It's about time. But
That is correct,
I'll be
Rich.
able to report in about a week or two as to not only with the farmers, but with many other industries also. Okay?
Let's updated ag numbers on this Friday.
Okay, good. I'd like to have that. I'll report them as they come in. But we're watching closely, and, you know, they understand. They have a deal, and hopefully they're going to keep the deal. We'll see.
Hopefully.
They may,
I mean, they
may
haven't
not.
on
We'll
anything
find
so
out.
far.
We'll
But
know soon.
On the ventilators that you say you're giving to other countries,
Yeah.
how do you decide to get them? Do they have to return them?
Well, we have thousands of ventilators right now under development and already in storage, as you know. We're stockpiling. We have over 10,000. We've sent them to states. The states are all, you have plenty of ventilators, right? Did
Yeah.
you ever think that was possible?
No.
They never wrote a story about it, Kim.
No.
And that's a tough one.
We're at 85.
I checked earlier. There are stories about the
That's not like a
ventilators.
swab.
Lots and lots of stories
That's not like a
about.
swab that's a piece
It
of
turned out
cotton.
we had enough
This is
ventilators,
a big deal doing a ventilator.
even though he
So,
said the cupboard was bare.
countries know that we have tremendous
Because the
volume,
American people did social distancing.
and they've been calling.
And the other thing was, a lot of
Nigeria
hospitals were
was
discovering
called,
that ventilators
Giving them 250 ventilators.
may not be the best treatment
have
at certain
many
points of time.
countries,
Somebody figured out if you
say
roll a coronavirus patient
12,
over, their
14
blood ox level
countries
goes
have
way up. Which,
We're sending quite a few to France. We're sending
and I don't know all the science on this, because I'm not a doctor, even though I play one on TV. But the blood clotting and the thrombosis and all the stuff going on, this disease is just... there's not even really an adjective for it. It's disaster. It's very strongly. It's the stuff that we're finding out that this disease does to people, and now the Kawasaki disease in children. It's insane.
quite a few to Spain and Italy. And we have other countries. We have 4 African countries located in Africa.
Those countries are
We're
shitholes,
really in bad
in all
shape,
fairness.
frankly. Very bad shape. And we're sending them quite a few. So we're in a position where we
They
can
did.
now help
Rich
other
is right. They
people.
sent California
Because basically, what are you talking about?
1,200 broken ventilators. Rich, correct me.
It's not a
It's somewhere in
question
that.
of
But so California
about a lot
sent
of
them
people
out,
dying.
and they got fixed, and they got
And
them
we
back.
make a great ventilator, as you people found out. Your people actually told me the ventilator. You know, there are good ventilators and not so good. We go top of the line. We're making all top of the line. So
There's
we're sending them to
ventilators
a lot of
that
countries.
only let you take every second or third breath. I say make them go as high as 5 or 6, but our ventilators, they're with you every breath of the way. Every breath you take, every news you fake, every leaf you rake, every cake you bake.
As they need them, and they call.
And are those donations, will they have to be returned?
So we're working on that, and in a certain way, I like them to be donations. I really do. I think it's goodwill. It's hard to say you have to pay us in order to save people from dying. And I'm the first one to say you got to pay, but you know, this is,
Okay,
something
I didn't even have to say it.
different.
I did
think
not
it's
have to say it.
something They really appreciate more than
He's doing my
normally,
work
like,
for me.
you know, you're
Goodbye,
doing
everybody.
some trade for some linen or whatever it is. A ventilator will save lives. And they are really, some of these countries have none. Larry Kudlow knows. I mean, you know the kind of calls we've been getting. They're like desperation calls because you can't make them. It takes you months and months to get them set. We did it in weeks. The people did an incredible job. I was very proud of them. There's not been something like this since World War II, you know, especially that because it's a big piece of equipment, very expensive, and very complex. You know, it's a very highly complex piece. The air has to flow at a certain level. You know, everything is, it's a very, very complex piece of equipment. So it's a good question, but we have many countries calling, and we're helping as many as we can.
Sure. When you said a little while ago here that this was a worse attack than Pearl Harbor and 9/11. Are you suggesting that COVID-19 is an actual act of war?
I view it as I view the invisible enemy as a war. I don't like how it got here because it could have been stopped. But no, I view the invisible enemy like a war. Hey, it's killed more people than Pearl Harbor, and it's killed more people than the World Trade Center. World Trade Center was close to 3,000. Well, we're going to beat that by many times, unfortunately. So, yeah, we view it as a war. This is a mobilization against a war. It's in many ways, it's a tougher enemy. You know, we do very well against the visible enemies. It's the invisible enemy. This is an invisible enemy. So, but we're doing a good job.
What's your assessment, Mr. President, of the volunteer program that Jared Kushner put in place to ramp up PPE? And did it, as has been charged in a couple of news articles, favor people with political connections to you?
So I just heard that. I can only say this. These were young, brilliant people that were brought in because they...
So Jared brought in a bunch of volunteers to help try and get PPE. By the way, we still don't have enough PPE, no matter what Trump says, and we just saw that from the nurses' conference that he just had in the Oval Office, whatever you want to call it. Whatever you can call it, a nurses' conference, you can call it a gathering, you can call it peaches, whatever. And Jared had these friends of his buddies, try and get this PPE and kind of ignored the experts who knew how to get PPE because they've been medical experts for years. And apparently he told them to give favor to those who agreed with the political views of the president in terms of sending the PPE, which is why Florida got 4 shipments of PPE they didn't even ask for. While other states that were Democratic states were screaming because they were running out of PPE, including Washington.
They have great expertise in this. People that love the country, people that
Hi,
I don't
Kareem.
think were paid anything. In fact, some of them were very rich people where they were able to
Rich
sell their
people
company.
volunteered and didn't know how to do
Some
it.
people would say nerds, okay? This is what they do. And I think they helped us a lot on ventilators. I wasn't involved in that, but I think they helped us a lot.
Thanks for volunteering,
To them, they can
nerd.
look at a ventilator, and it's a very simple machine. Somebody else looks at it, they have no clue. I think they did an incredible job.
Somebody else
Now,
looks at it,
I
they've
don't know
got no
anything
clue.
about any of the details of it, but it was a well-oiled machine. They were able to get things that nobody else was able to get. They got good pricing. Pricing, by the way.
Speaking of oiling ventilators, part of the national stockpile was ventilators that stopped working because Trump didn't renew the contract to keep them maintained.
Was not the most important element, but pricing was still, pricing's pricing. But we
Probably,
were able
Kathleen.
to get gowns and gloves and masks
pricing's
and all
pricing.
these things at a very early point. Now we're making
America's
a lot. You
teacher.
saw it yesterday where we're making masks at Honeywell. But I will say, Deborah, you saw it too. I mean, the level of ramp up that we did so quickly. So I would say they did. I wasn't involved.
I
in the
wish they
details,
showed
but I
her
can tell
face.
you,
Because every time he
started
refers to
flowing.
her, she's
That
just
was
like,
with the planes pouring in from all over the place.
And did the program in any way favor suppliers who had political connections?
Well, I don't even know that because I have no idea who bought. I wasn't involved in that. We have a lot of support in our campaign. A lot of people are supporting our campaign. They want to see us win very badly. So I don't know, do they have companies? Do they not have companies? I can tell you I don't believe these kids would have any knowledge of any of these companies. And, like I had seen this Dr. Bright. I never met Dr. Bright. I don't know who he is. I didn't hear good things about him. I did not hear good things about him at all. And to me, he seems like a disgruntled employee.
I don't know who he is. I did not hear good things about him.
That's trying to help the Democrats win an election by getting out. I mean, he's got a pre-taped sermon about, what he thinks. And I can tell you, they didn't think he did a very particularly good job, as I understand it. Now, I just got this morning because I'm saying, who is this guy? But I never met him. I know nothing about him. But he's a disgruntled guy. And I don't think disgruntled people should be working for a certain administration. I mean, he certainly seemed to have a very well packaged deal, and he's got the same lawyers.
He just called his own administration a certain administration. I don't believe disgruntled. I'm going to just play it.
For a certain but I never met him. I know nothing about him, but he's a disgruntled guy. And I don't think disgruntled people should be working for a certain administration.
Your administration.
He certainly
You can say your
seemed to have a
administration.
very well-packaged deal, and he's got the same lawyers that some other well-known people had, and he comes up with
Certain
the
people?
whistleblower. I always thought whistleblower was sort of a secret thing. Well, everyone knows who he is, so why is it a whistleblower?
That's because you're an idiot.
Well, protection from what? Protection from what? But everybody knows who he is because he was
Retaliation.
public about it.
That's
And if you look at his lawyers are the same lawyers that other people have used. And so I
So good
don't
lawyers?
know much about it, but to me he seems like a disgruntled employee.
This is the guy whose last personal lawyer, Michael Cohen, is in jail after flipping on him, and he's an unindicted co-conspirator. I could go on about Michael Cohen, and whose current personal lawyer is Rudy Giuliani.
Mr. President, about the figures right now, are you
Which figures?
figures death toll figures in the United States over 70,000? Do you believe those figures?
Well, I think what it is what it is. From you're saying it's 70,000, it's approximately now 70,000. So do I believe him? Yeah.
You don't have
I
reason
don't
to
believe
cast
him for
doubt.
China,
Yeah.
and I don't believe him from other countries where I see, a very tiny number of people die.
Because
but
the question was
you're
about
watching the
China.
news and you see what's going on. But our numbers are, essentially certified numbers. They're individual hospitals. They're putting out the numbers. I don't imagine there'd be a very big variation. No, it's a big number.
Quotes from history. We have nothing to fear but fear itself. Well, 70,000 dead. It is what it is.
But it's also a number that's at the lower scale. I think, Deborah, you could say it's at the very lower scale of any number that was predicted. Because if you look at the predictions, I guess they said from 100 to 220,000. That's if we did the big shut-ins and if we went to the total shutdown. And now it's time to open up our country. Got to open up.
Oh,
our country.
we're going to get
Okay.
to 110.
Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you.
Is that it? Okay. Let's get rid of him.
You
And
can
let's
both
go
give
join
yourself
KK.
one or the other.
So, Kayleigh Mcenany. I'm going to play this on the Fox feed because the C-SPAN speed. I just watched the very end of the C-SPAN speed, and it was not good. You could call it strongly. 130,000 by August. I don't know if we'll get there, but we were supposed to get to 70,000 by August 4th. So, who knows? And now we're opening things up again, which is insanity. Some things can be open. That's fine. But this whole let's get a tattoo. Okay. Here we go. Here's Kayleigh Mcenany.
All viruses.
I
mutate.
apologize, Doctor. We're going to go. Doctor, we will go later, but do have Kayleigh Mcenany at the White House addressing probably some of these issues.
Regarding test results, it'll be over my shoulder and hopefully on the screen for those of you
good.
watching on television. As this chart shows, the United States has to date completed 7.5 million coronavirus tests. It's an extraordinary number. And as you can see, the United States leads the world in testing. This graph is no accident. In fact, this graph is a testament to American innovation.
I'm going to show you why this graph is no accident. Take a look at the graph. I'm going to zoom in on it here if I can. Yeah, here we go. Look at this graph. United States, and then all the way down here, Germany, Italy, Canada. I'm going to go to the website where you can actually see what this graph does. And I'm going to show you why this graph is no accident. And you, my friends, are being deceived. There's the graph behind her. Let's go to the actual website where they get this graph from. There's the graph right there. Look at the look at that. Germany's Russia's right here. Notice on their graph. Let's go back to their graph here. Their graph, there's no Russia. They took Russia out of there because there's Russia, and it's pretty high up there. 4.4. It's 2.25 million. So let's just get rid of that. And let's see, I'll put Germany on here as well. You can go to the site yourself. It's ourworldindata.org and then go to the testing link. Let's find Germany and throw that on here. Let's see what it looks like. Yeah, so everything between this and this is missing. Russia's sitting right in there, but they took Russia out of there because, this is on purpose. Is that what she says? I think that's what she says. Or intentional.
To date,
Watch.
completed 7.5 million coronavirus tests. It's an extraordinary number. And as you can see, the United States leads the world in testing. This graph is no accident. In fact, this graph is a testament to American innovation, including the work of the Trump administration. For example, the FDA has issued over 70 emergency.
You know what? I never thought I'd say this, but Kayleigh is telling the truth. This is the work of the Trump administration. Let's make us look as good as possible, and we're going to eliminate certain facts because they're inconvenient. There's facts, there's alternative facts, and now we have inconvenient facts. Which, by the way, and also, look, they put the chart, let's see, you guys can see my mouse there. They put the chart vertically instead of horizontally. This is like getting it off of a cell phone. Here's what the chart looks like if you put it horizontally. And the reason why it looks so bad horizontally, okay, it's freaking out on me here. But the reason that it looks bad horizontally is because when you just take the United States, look at this. United States the testing doesn't start and register on here until March 7th. Whereas other countries were testing all the way back into January. All this time right here, we were allowing the virus to spread and grow. That other line right here, that's South Korea. They contained the virus. They were testing. By the time it's March 7th, I'll zoom in for you here and fix that. There we go. If we look at March 7th, here's South Korea with 180,000 tests almost. We weren't even at 4,000 tests yet. That is the work of the Trump administration. And the inconvenient truth with the hockey stick graph, right there, that's a reference for old people. This is all part of the algorithms. That's how computers work. Good night, folks. Drive safely. Let's go back to Kayleigh. Anyway, if you've watched this before, I was going on a rant about this morning. This is all nonsense. Basically, the time for testing was back then, and now we have 74,000 dead Americans.
Use authorizations to expand testing capacity. To accelerate the development of therapeutics and vaccines, there are nearly 80 clinical trials ongoing, with an additional 30 clinical trials expected. This graph.
Rich Mack just asked, can that same website show deaths instead of tests? Yeah, I was just in the testing area. You can play around with that later. Let's get going with this. But yeah, there's all sorts of websites. I can find one very quickly because I just had it pulled up. This is World. I'm going to bring it over so you guys can see it. I'll go to full screen. Give me one moment, please. This is for Rich, and I'm doing it for Rich because, hey, Rich is a patron. So he's my boss. And if you want this sort of thing to happen for you in the middle of a broadcast and me to obey your every wish, then all you have to do is become a patron. Go to KevinlyFather.com. So yeah, here's a it's more like a field hockey stick, really. But you can see deaths take off. And interestingly enough, if we go back, right here, right there, 19 deaths. That's really, we didn't even get started testing with that. As we can see from the testing, give me a second. Let's go back to the testing right there. See all of this right here? Boom, boom, boom. No testing. March 7th, we really didn't get going with testing until the 21st-ish. And if we go back to the world, which one is it? There it is. Look at where the deaths take off. 21 days after March 7th is March 28th. This is where the deaths take off. So this is where it's germinating. This is where it takes off. That's how it works with exponential growth. And what were we doing the time when we should have been doing something about exponential growth? Well, the CDC had decided to develop tests on its own, and they failed miserably. And that's why we have 70,000 deaths, kid. All right, there's your bedtime story for the night. Sleep peacefully, and we will see you in the morning.
Graph is also a testament to the American people, who have been, and it's no exaggeration, American warriors, as they've followed social distancing guidelines and taken steps to ensure that the health and safety of our vulnerable populations is protected.
Okay, the president's been saying the last couple of days that Americans are warriors because they're going back to work to open up the country and fight the coronavirus. She just said they're American warriors because they've been staying at home. So, I understand what's going on. She's saying they're American warriors because they fought the urge to go outside? So warriors? Whereas the president should be saying that those going back to work at tattoo parlors are American martyrs.
Protected. Finally, I would like to note that this graph indicates that the U.S. has conducted double the number of tests conducted in other countries. The U.S. is providing leadership during this crisis, not only leading the world in testing, but also taking steps to help allies around the world. Steps we are able to take only because of this country's incredible ingenuity and work ethic. As you're well aware, President Trump has consistently sided with the experts and has...
Okay, so that's a lie. That is a lie. While you were watching, I was doing the same thing here. Let's go look at the lie. Here's the United States, 7.2. She just said 7.5. That's fine. Okay, so let's look at Russia right next to it. 4.3. I'm not a mather, but that's 8.6. So this whole double of what any other country? I mean, unless Russia's lying, which is a possibility, because you can't trust Russia. It's like, why? Why do you lie about stuff like that? What is the point of coming up with a lie that doesn't mean anything? Like, yeah, okay, we've done more testing than anybody. I just slam dunked a basketball. No one has ever been able to slam dunk a basketball before. Dude, you slam dunked a that's pretty cool. You can slam dunk. That's awesome. I slammed in a basket higher than anyone in the history of dunking. Why? It's a point. So many absolutely needless lies.
Always prioritize the health and safety of the American people.
Unless
this includes issuing guidance that meant hardworking Americans had to stay home, social distance, and slow the spread of the virus. The hard work of Americans saved many lives, and we salute the great citizens of this country for your hard work. As Americans across the country stayed home and businesses temporarily shut their doors, President Trump ensured American employees and employers would receive the help that they needed. The Paycheck Protection Program provided forgivable loans to small business owners who kept their employees on payroll. To date, 2.3 million small business loans have been processed, with the average loan being $76,000. In other words, meaning that the small businesses that needed the help the most got it. I would remind everyone that of the 1.
No, what that means is that the whole bunch of businesses took loans of $1 to $10 million, and the average loan is nowhere near 76. Well, the average is, but the mean's going to be much lower. Basically, the small businesses didn't get anywhere near to 76,000. Just like saying that the tax cut, the average family gets $4,000 back from the tax cuts. Well, the 1%ers, actually the top 5% are getting about 36,000 in tax cuts, and that brings up everybody else's average somewhat. But I just did my taxes a couple of days ago, and I did not get $4,000, which, quite frankly, I'm shocked. Anybody else? Is anybody else? Trump keeps saying that everybody else is $10,000 richer because of his policies, including rebates on oil. So if you're $10,000 richer, please vote for Trump. Is anybody in the chat room $10,000 richer?
6 million loans given out in the first tranche.
And if you are, why not sponsor this show? Go to KevinlyFather.com and become a patron.
Spending $1 million of those went to businesses with 10 or fewer employees. So it truly has gone to those who need it most.
That's kind of
Joe Shamus is a businesses that needed the help the most got it. I would remind everyone that of the 1.6 million loans given out in the first tranche of spending, 1 million of those went to businesses with 10 or fewer employees. So it truly has gone to those who need it most.
So about 60% went to businesses with fewer than 10 employees, which means that 40% went to businesses with 10 or more. And of course, as we saw on Fox News on Sunday during their town hall, there are a lot of people out there that are self-employed. They're out of luck. They may be doing all the work for their company, like the couple that makes, I think, putter grips on Fox News. There's nothing for them except the $1,200, which if they're like my family, it's me and Kevinly daughter, half of the family got no $1,200. So, and we're still trying to fight the IRS site, and we've already tried the all caps, and And $1,200? Excuse me, but I haven't worked since March 12th. So if you'd like to help, you can go to KevinlyFather.com and become a patron. Kidding. We're okay. We're fine. I'm extremely lucky to have the wonderful friends that I have and family, and to get the work that I do get before this all happened. But I am an exception. I'm not like everybody. There are millions of Americans who do not have the support system and the ability to generate revenue like I have. We should be giving money directly to the people. Rant over. Here's KK.
Joe Shamus is a small business owner. Joe, with his co-founder Brian Stortz, are two veteran special operators in the military who started Flags of Valor in 2015. It's a veteran-owned, veteran-run manufacturing company located not too far from here in Virginia. Flags of Valor builds wooden flags, among other products. They've employed over their years 65 veterans and have raised over $1 million for veteran charities. Flags of Valor is also proud to have 97,000 hours of American manufacturing labor under their belt.
Oh,
it's a lot
Stephanie,
of hours.
that sucks.
At the start of this crisis, Joe had to furlough 4 of his employees, in addition to imposing a 50% pay cut. His employees were, of course, disappointed, but they were, quote, in his words, all in the fight against the coronavirus. Everything changed for Joe and his furloughed employees when he applied for the PPP loan. Just this week, he was approved for that PPP loan that enabled Flags of Valor to rehire its furloughed employees and to boost paychecks back to pre-coronavirus levels.
Sorry, Kim.
PPP was a huge lifeline for us, Joe told me. He called it a lifesaver. This is a perfect example of why President Trump fought for additional PPP funding and will continue to fight for small businesses and American heroes like Joe. Joe is here with me today, and I'd like to invite him to come up.
Okay, we're going to skip by Joe here.
When you talk about
he makes flags, and that's nice. He helps veterans. My dad's a veteran.
Companies
My nephew just
making
got out of the Marines.
that
all for veterans. But he's not why we're here today, and I've already taken up too much of your time. So
coffee that keeps ask me some questions.
To small businesses, and I hope to be a big business someday. But for now, I'm happy to be alive. I'm thankful for your support, and thank you, Kayleigh, for letting me be here. So join us at flagsofvalor.com.
And I'm sure that he thanked Nancy Pelosi profusely for making sure that his business was able to get the PPP loans that he so desperately needed. I'm sure that happened, but we don't have time to go over that. So you guys can watch that later and then just, DM me.
Thank you.
Joe, if you want to take a seat with the reporters, you can ask me some questions. But
I'm happy.
Joe, it's veterans like you that make our country great. It's small business owners like you that are going to bring this country back, and employees like the one we heard from last week, Michael Hoyt, the employee of Biddy and Bo's Coffee, that keep this country going. So thank you so much for the example you've set, and to the hardworking business owners across the country, and to the employees across this country who are working during this time. So thank you, Joe. Thank you for your service. As I said, PPP has changed lives across this country, and as President Trump has said, the American people are warriors, and we will fight together to defeat the invisible enemy.
By the way, there's a ton of people in Washington, because Washington has a really good unemployment system of benefits, that I read an article just recently about, are you guys interested in this at all? I mean, not this, obviously you want to see KK. If you guys want to hear about the article that I read concerning PPP in Washington State, let me know. Otherwise, we're going to get back to KK.
And with that, I'll take questions.
Thanks, Kayleigh. Just to get back to this decision that was supposedly coming yesterday, whose idea was it initially to wind down the White House Coronavirus Task Force?
Look, I would just refer you back to the
She's not going to answer this. Come on.
President's comments. He's been asked this like 4 times today, I believe. He decided that Coronavirus Task Force is here to stay. They've done great work. I've witnessed it. I'm in the Coronavirus Task Force meetings, and they've gotten our country through this. There were supposed to be 2.2 million deaths, and we're at a point where we're far lower than that, and it's thanks to the great work of the task force and to the leadership of President Trump.
But whose idea was it initially?
Yeah. How come the fake news never talks about all the people that Jeffrey Dahmer didn't eat?
To wind it down.
Again, I'm not going further. The president has answered this 4 times today. John?
I just have a question about masks.
He has not answered it. No, she's not going to answer it.
So there was some back and forth over the president wearing a mask yesterday. I don't want to ask about that, but the White House's view what is the White House's message to the American people? Does the White House, does the president believe that people should be wearing masks as they try to get back to some semblance of their normal life?
Well, as we put out, it's recommended, but that's the choice of the individual as to whether they wear a mask or not. The president yesterday, the CEO of Honeywell, said that there was no need, and so he followed that advice and that guidance. And I would just note on the note of masks, 70 million N95 masks have been distributed across the country. 25 million rather, are what's used in the average year for our healthcare workers. So the fact that in a few weeks we've distributed nearly 3 times what is used in a year is extraordinary, and that's not to mention the 120 million surgical masks and the many other supplies that this president has.
Okay, just a aside here. Everyone says, well, not to mention the 20 million masks that you just mentioned it. Let's stop using that expression. That's it. I'm putting a moratorium on it.
If I can just follow up, I'm sure you've seen in a number of polls, there's a huge difference between Democrats and Republicans over whether or not they think it's necessary to wear a mask in public. Do you have any sense as to why that would be?
No sense as to why that would be. That's the choice.
I don't know. Democrats are always believing science.
The American public, it's the choice of the individual as to whether to wear a mask or not.
I just gave her Trump's voice. So.
But again, I'd praise the extraordinary work of this administration in distributing those masks and ensuring healthcare providers get them. Yes.
Kayleigh, we were just talking about masks. You said at Honeywell, the president was told by the folks at Honeywell, as was the team, that they didn't need to wear masks. The reason he was told that was because the people who would be interacting with them had all been tested and had been shown to be negative before that took place. I guess. The president had those circumstances. Obviously, he's the president. But why shouldn't all Americans who go back to work be able to get a test before they do to feel comfortable in their own work environment to be interacting with other individuals?
Yeah, well, let's dismiss a myth about tests right now. If we tested every single American in this country at this moment, we'd have to retest them an hour later and then an hour later after that, because at any moment you could theoretically contract this virus. So the notion that everyone needs to be tested is just simply nonsensical. The people who need to be tested are vulnerable populations.
So because someone can catch the virus, we're not going to test for the virus, is what she just said. Because we can't, I can't even think of an analogy to it. Because I don't have $1 million, I'm not going to spend 20.
Populations. That's why Dr. Birx has repeatedly emphasized we need to surge nursing homes with the testing, meat processing facilities. That's where the testing is needed. We have to be strategic with our testing, and we have done that so far.
Because we don't have
again,
enough.
if we want to talk about testing and the volume of testing, the fact that in South Korea we always hear about South Korea and their tests. There are 11 tests per 1,000 here in the United States. That's 17 tests per 1,000. Our hotspots per capita are higher than other countries.
That does not sound right. We're going to check that. So here we have the tests. We're right here. Okay, so South Korea, she just said 11 tests per 1,000. There's, okay, there we go, Republic of Korea. Okay, so there's 12, so she was close. She said 17 here, there's 22. So, she just say things? Does anybody check the data on that? By the way, here's South Korea. We looked at this earlier. The reason South Korea didn't have to ramp up like the United States did there with that hockey stick is because they controlled the virus. Last time I looked, they had 250 deaths. We have 74,000 as of today. Did I save that article? Okay, I'm going to go back to the broadcast. Give me a second. I'm going to pull up an article about South Korea. Speaking of hockey sticks.
We've conducted 2 times the number of tests of other countries around the world. We're at a very strong place in this country with testing, but rest assured we'll deploy it strategically because that's what the American public expects of us.
So just to follow up, to be clear.
Okay, a very strong place with testing. I literally can't get my daughter tested. I tried yesterday. Cannot get her tested because she doesn't have enough symptoms. A 21-year-old who doesn't have enough symptoms because, but that's a strong place in testing.
Should people accept the risk that they could become ill if they go back to work?
Look, each and every state has put into place, this is a governor-led effort, first of all. Let me emphasize that. The president has said that governors make the decisions as to how to move forward, and we encourage them to follow our phased approach. Each state has submitted to us a list of testing that they need in order to safely reopen. I was sitting in the meeting when Admiral Joie pulled out the list for several states and said...
Admiral Giroir was the one who promised us 27 million tests by the end of March. Moving on.
Here's the testing you requested to open safely. Here's the testing I'm giving you to meet that need. It's pretty extraordinary, this wide-scale effort by the Trump administration to ensure states have what they need. So as states reopen, they'll do so safely, and they'll do so with the supplies of the Trump administration.
The supplies of the Trump administration. Even though when you needed the supplies, we had nothing. We didn't have any testing back in February when it really counted. Speaking of the countries no, wait, I already did that segue. Speaking of hockey sticks, South Koreans love baseball. Let's go to Kevin for an update. So here's South Korea. They're playing baseball again. We're all locked down. I can't go play hockey, but people have gotten better to the point in South Korea that they can go play baseball. They can't watch baseball because they're smart. They're not allowing crowds in. These are the crowds at the South Korea baseball stadium. They're on ESPN. If you want to watch baseball, it's on right now. Not this, well, I don't know. It could be on this moment. Anyway, this is the cool thing about the crowds. Look at those crowds. Like half the crowds are, it's like a Hollywood set when you've got a big crowd. Half the extras or 3/4 of the extras are actually just cardboard cutouts that they put into the seats. So they got that. And then next to that, they got like this cartoon guy. He must be a local mascot or something. And I love him. And he seems to have some sort of carrot thing on his head. Let's get in there. Yeah, like a sprout of some kind, bok choy. I have no idea. Does anybody know what's on this guy's head or who this guy is? And is that a Yankees hat? Is he wearing a Yankees hat? I don't know. I can't tell. But the cool thing about the crowds, if we just come right over here, look at this guy. He's wearing a mask. That's how smart the South Koreans are being about this. Even the replicas of human beings are wearing masks. I'm sorry, but that rocks. Let's get back to KK.
Say that so many of those states, what does it say that so many of those governors, those states, aren't following the guidelines that the president dictated from this podium?
We encourage every single governor to follow the guidelines that we've put forward to a phased reopening approach.
And none of them have.
We have this beautiful concept called federalism, which means that the states lead on this, and that's what we're doing. It's a governor-led decision, but.
Hold on, I got to interrupt this. So basically, she's saying we set the guidelines for the governors to ignore. Now, one of them that's opening up has taken into account the guidelines set forth by Fauci and others. Rich, you watched one of the South Korean baseball games. How was it? Let us know. I'm actually very curious because there's not a lot on TV to watch right now. But if you really want to wager, then check out my feed for Billy Joel Madness. 64 songs, only one will survive.
But we encourage everyone to follow the expert
to go to
written
my feed
guidelines
on
that
Twitter
we've put forward.
I do have
a question about reopening, but first, some of the areas that have been hardest hit by coronavirus have been urban areas. What is the White House doing, or is there any targeted effort to help?
Okay, first one to get me one of those South Korean mascots and send it to me is my new favorite person. Just saying that.
Stop the spread in minority communities?
Yeah, it's a very important question because we know that some of our underserved communities are hit most by the coronavirus. Absolutely, we've done quite a bit, invested, first of all, $1.4 billion into our...
If someone gets me those South Korean mascots, just one of them, this will become lie checking. No, lie. Good job. Okay, this is a concept right now. There are no wrong answers. Just wrong people. If someone gets me one of those South Korean mascots, this will become the live streaming with KevinlyFather, brought to you by the person who brought me the South Korean mascot. This is my new goal in life. I have a lot of time to kill. Moving on.
Our nation's 13,000 community centers. That ensures that 28 million people living in medically underserved areas receive funding. Also, that announcement I had for you last week about
By the way, we're now in hour 5 of a 10-minute press conference.
Hospital funding, $2 billion of that was geared towards specifically ensuring that men and women in underserved communities, and those hospitals got that money. And I would also note just that the president has directed Secretary last week about hospital funding, $2 billion of that was geared towards specifically ensuring that men and women in underserved communities, and those hospitals got that money.
Okay. $2 billion for men and women in underserved communities, hospitals, rural, minority areas. That's wonderful. United States Airlines, $86 billion. Private corporations that we all use. U.S. citizens, $2 billion. $86 billion for the airlines. You know, stockholders. United States citizens. Hospitals, $2 billion.
And I would also note just that the president has directed Secretary Ben Carson to focus the White House Opportunity and Revitalization Council.
I'm like 3 years away from just becoming Bernie Sanders on that. $96 million for American citizens, $2 billion.
On underserved communities. So very important. This is a community that's been very hard hit. And rest assured, we are laser focused on making sure that these communities are assisted.
Can I ask about reopening as well? Sure. Okay. So the task force has put out phased guidelines for states to reopen and individual guidelines, but it hasn't said very much about businesses specifically. Does it plan to put out any detailed guidelines for businesses
I don't know
like
what this guy
retailers
is,
and restaurants to reopen?
That's the South
Well,
Korean
in the phased
mascot.
approach, there are some recommendations for
I want
how,
one of
for
these
instance,
guys with
restaurants
the
should
carrot
reopen,
top head.
and the distancing that's required. And as you go through the phases, that distancing is shrunk, and there are other mechanisms that are outlined for restaurants and movie theaters and sporting venues. So I would argue that our phased approach does take that into account. And each and every state, by the way, the governor is welcome to reach out to us. We're constantly communicating with the governors. And when I say we, the administration, meaning Dr. Birx and others. So we are happy to consult with regard to specifics.
Really detailed. Some other outside organizations have put very detailed step-by-step. Here's what you should do. You should require masks. You should require them to sit this far apart. You should only have half of it open in phases. Anything like that?
We've put together a phased approach. Many of those guidelines are within. We've consulted individually with states, but as I said, it's a governor-led effort. It's a state-led effort in which the federal government will consult, and we do so each and every day.
So you've used the phrase warriors to describe everyday Americans. The president's using that phrase as well. What's the thinking behind using that description, and is that basically asking Americans to put themselves in harm's way like warriors do?
Not in the slightest. It's actually the opposite. The president's been clear that at this moment, we're at a wartime moment where we're fighting the invisible enemy, and by that I mean COVID-19. And on the contrary, the notion that the American people are warriors, they're warriors because they've stayed home. They're warriors because they've social distanced. They're warriors because this mitigation effort is something that could only be done by the American people coming together and making really hard sacrifices. And
Okay, I'm stuck. That's it. That's all I can do here. The press secretary of the United States just said they're warriors because they stayed home. Completely the opposite of what the president's been saying. Yes, the gentleman with the Los Angeles Times, I believe, just asked, the president is saying, warriors, go on out there and put yourselves in harm's way, which is exactly what the president has been saying the last few days, opening up America and acknowledging that possibly some people might catch the virus and die.
The American public has done that, and we salute each of you around the country that have listened to these guidelines. I know it's been difficult. I know it's been hard, but it's because of you that we're at this place where we can reopen the country.
Just to be clear, that's the opposite of what the president says, specifically because he says Americans must be warriors to reopen the economy. You're saying they've already been warriors by staying home.
We're saying the exact same thing. The president says they're warriors to reopen because, guess what? In order to get to reopening, you have to social distance. You had to put it together, those very hard.
These are not the droids you're looking for.
Hard choices that allowed us to get to a point where we have one of the lowest mortality rates in the world, and that's because of the American people. So it took the American people being warriors to get us to the point of reopening. Blake.
Thanks, Kayleigh. I want to ask you about best practices, but first on China and some of the comments that the president made in the Oval Office. He said that there will be a report coming out next week, 10 days or so, as to whether or not they're living up to the deal China is. As it stands, though, right now, at this moment, how does the White House view the U.S. relationship with China right now?
Right now, it's a relationship of disappointment and frustration because the president has said how frustrated he is that some of the decisions of China put American lives at risk. I'll share just a few that China, for instance, did not share the genetic sequence until after a professor in Shanghai did so on his own. And after that genetic sequence was shared, the next day, the lab was shut down for, quote, rectification. The World Health Organization slow-walked information on human-to-human transmission that was not adequately provided by China. China didn't let U.S. investigators in. And look, those decisions put American lives at risk. And the president is certainly not happy about that. And as the president said, you'll be hearing more about that next week.
Business partners?
Sorry?
Maybe trusted business partners?
Look, the president has worked with China and stood up to China and got the Phase 1 China deal, a huge win, $250 billion. The president managed to get that done. And the president appreciates that China got us to that point of the Phase 1 China deal. So, I'll leave it to the president as to how we move forward, and I certainly won't get ahead of him on that.
On best practices, we heard the president say, as it relates to schools, that he wants to see schools open, but maybe teachers who are older than 60 not necessarily come back into the classroom. When you talk about reopening the economy, reopening the country again, there's a lot of people out there wondering, well, my school-aged child, should they come back into contact with a family member who might be older than 60 per se? What is the White House advice on that and families who are all over the country saying, is it time to meet up again?
I will bet anyone $13 million that she's not going to answer this.
Well, the president and the task force have been clear that vulnerable Americans, our senior citizens, need to shelter in place, and they need to take extra measures of precaution because, as we know, they've been disproportionately affected by the coronavirus. So I certainly would include the senior community to continue to follow the guidelines we've put forward. Yes.
Hey, what about kids who go to school and then have contact with their grandparents? I certainly include the senior community to follow our... It's not even English. So did anybody take me up on the bet? I know it's delayed, so I just want to. So 10 million coming my way. We're in the money. No, nobody. Some of you are probably a minute or two delayed, so I'm assuming that someone took me up on that bet. I'm going to put my address here so you can send me the check.
Dr. Birx has mentioned an influx of asymptomatic coronavirus cases. And without more widespread testing, how do you get a handle on something like that? And how do you keep people without symptoms from spreading the disease around the country?
Okay, if that guy's not on NPR, he should be because he's got that cadence for it. Dr. Birx has suggested that there's a notion that someone might have the coronavirus even if they're asymptomatic. It's every announcer on NPR.
Yeah, so it's an important question. We get information on asymptomatic spread when we test in the...
By the way, I have no idea how loud I am when I get close to the mic, so if it's annoyingly loud, let me know.
Meat processing facility.
I mean beyond my regular annoyingly loud. Speaking of annoying, I'm going to pause one more time.
Other facilities. Again, we can just test strategically, and it's important that once we test and we find an example of someone who has coronavirus, that we can contact trace and ensure that it's not spread to other members of the community. So contact tracing is an important measure, and we're testing strategically and in line with governors. John.
What's the process, Kayleigh, for the distribution and access to remdesivir?
Yeah, remdesivir is a great example of innovation in this country. I would note that remdesivir is a drug that the president mentioned quite often, and as it turns out...
The president did mention it quite often and continues to mention it. I haven't even updated this. There's more to it, but I want to play you this if you haven't seen it. You know what? It makes me laugh every time. I can't hear the audio, but you guys can, so enjoy.
There are promising therapies produced by Gilead, and that's
remdesivir.
Remdesivir.
We're also studying this and other promising therapies, which is a therapy produced by Gilead, and that would be it's called remdesivir.
Remdesivir.
The ones that I mentioned are very good, but especially I think if you look at
remdesivir,
the first mention could be a absolute total game changer.
God damn, I'm getting good at those fades. So, yeah, he screwed it up just a couple of days ago as well. I haven't added that to the video. I've been so busy. Let's get back to her.
There's a lot of hope and a lot of promise when it comes to remdesivir.
Just
Gilead
like
chairman announced last week, and CEO Daniel O'Day announced that they would be donating 1.5 million vials of remdesivir and working with the federal government to distribute to patients across the nation. So this will get out there, and we thank Gilead for the great work they've done and for giving these 1.5 million vials, which will help a lot of Americans around the country.
But what's the process for distributing it and giving access to patients?
I don't have any information on that as of now, but once I get that, I can share that with you. Yeah.
Thanks, Kayleigh.
By the way, it looks like the Trump administration is kind of trying to take credit for Project No Stop, or whatever they're calling it, warp speed. That's funny. They're actually calling it warp speed. I was just spitballing there, but I remembered what it's called. Project Warp Speed to get a vaccine. And now they're kind of taking credit for remdesivir, which was developed in 2015 for Ebola. It's been out there. Developed under the Obama administration, for which now, as you heard, Kayleigh was just trying to take credit under President Trump's leadership.
Yeah, the president said yesterday he does not want Dr. Fauci testifying before the House because it's filled with Trump haters. How is that consistent with oversight and transparency?
Well, first of all, what the president noted was specific to the House. It's important to note that Dr. Fauci will be testifying before the Senate, which means he will be fielding questions from both Democrats and Republicans. The House, however, and specifically Chairwoman Nita Lowey's committee, did not act in good faith. Mark Meadows had 3 calls with Chairwoman Nita Lowey 3 nights ago when she called to ask if Dr. Fauci could testify before a subcommittee hearing. And Chief of Staff Mark Meadows has made clear he wants to make the best use he can of the task force members' time. Of course, they're working hard to save American lives, so that's very important. So to that end, he said in the 3 phone calls, what is the purpose of this hearing? Can you give me the subject matter? And Lowey was unable to tell the Chief of Staff what the subject matter was. The last phone call they had was at 10:46 p.m. on that evening, and Lowey agreed to follow up in the morning with details. Those details were never received. Instead, we got a press release. So that's what we call a publicity stunt. We encourage the House to act in good
She just called a press release a publicity stunt. She's the press secretary at the White House putting on a press conference.
Faith, much like the Senate did. And as I noted, Dr. Fauci will be speaking in a week and a half before the Senate, so the notion that he's being blocked is just farcical.
Let me ask you just one other, can I ask you one
farcical.
other
Someone have
farcical.
Does the president have doubts about the way the death toll is being calculated? Does he think perhaps the true toll is lower?
So the president answered this, and he said no, just a few moments ago in the Oval Office. On the mortality rate, I would note, as I noted just a few moments ago, we have one of the lowest in the world mortality rates. It's because of the hard work of the American people. Our mortality rate, is currently 218 per million. You compare that to Spain's at 548 per million, Italy at 485 per million. This country is in a place where, because of the work of the American people, we have escaped that 2.2 million number because of the extraordinary social distancing effort put in place by the American people. Yeah, way in the back.
Thank you. The president has said many times that he's received praise in phone calls with foreign leaders because of this administration's response to the coronavirus outbreak. Who exactly are those heads of state and heads of government who are praising this administration for its response?
Well, I won't reveal any contents of his private conversations with world leaders, but I will certainly share some of the very public comments from Democrat governors like Gavin Newsom, who said every single direct request that President Trump, that he was given, President Trump was capable of meeting. He has met them. Governor Phil Murphy, Democrat from New Jersey, the president knows New Jersey. He and his team have been extremely responsive in our hour of need, whether it was ventilators. We got a huge amount of supplies to test. And of course, I love the ones from Governor Andrew Cuomo, who praised this administration's response is phenomenal, saying he's delivered for New York. The Army Corps of Engineers, we built thousands of beds. He sent the Navy ship Comfort to New York. He has delivered for New York. President Trump has delivered for this nation.
Thanks, Kevin.
Okay, while she was yapping there, I just did the research on that. She's saying we've got one of the lowest mortality rates in the world of any country. That's just a fucking lie. Hold on. Here it comes. I'm going to zoom in on this. Jesus. Sorry, I know people who've... Here it is. There's the U.S. Per 100,000 population, death rate. Okay, this is mortality rate, 21.72. France, Spain, United Kingdom, all worse, right? China, we don't know for sure, 0.33. India, 0.13. Brazil, 3.79. Again, us, 21. 3. Look at all these countries. 1. Okay, but let's take Russia out of the equation. Mexico, about 2. Japan, 0.4. They're going to get worse. South Korea, 0.49, so 0.5. Back up to the U.S., what were 21. All these countries, lower. Oh, Andorra, hold on. What the hell, Andorra? Andorra's a country that's, I don't know, the size of a postage stamp, but per population, Andorra got hit pretty hard. Well, look at where they are. They're sandwiched in between countries in Europe. So I wonder if Liechtenstein's on here. I don't have the time. Malawi's doing okay. I used to live in Malawi. Malawi, Zimbabwe, Zambia, there's Malawi. 0.02. Yeah, so she just said we have one of the lowest mortality rates in the world. I mean, sure, if you take out all of what Trump called the shithole countries, yeah, 21.72. So there's what, 6 or 7 countries above us, maybe? Belgium got hit hard. But again, lower population, and they're right near the epicenter in Europe. I mean, everything we check is just a complete falsehood. And there's nothing stopping them. There's no accountability. What Trump's presidency has shown us is that there is zero accountability for the executive office. If you've got enough senators, oh well, we're so partisan now in this country. We're such a tribalism situation. I didn't even say that the right way, but you know what I'm saying. A president can get away with anything, and this press secretary can say whatever the fuck she wants. And yes, the people in the room are going to fact check her on this later. They don't have a computer in front of them, I guess, where they can say, actually, the death rate is nowhere near what you're saying. We're right up near the top. No.
The president was talking earlier about Dr. Bright being a...
What I'm saying is vote. And if you live in a non-swing state, who cares? But if you live in a swing state, vote. Somebody's in Michigan. Dee, are you in Michigan? Somebody's
disgruntled employee. One of the allegations in that whistleblower complaint is that in January, when there was still a huge shortage of N95 masks, that he had been in contact with a company that was offering up to 1 million of those masks, and he couldn't get anybody at HHS willing to engage with that company, which then subsequently exported 1 million N95s to China. Is that something that you're looking into or concerned about?
Look, on issues of Dr. Bright, I'd refer you to HHS. I'm not going to get involved with the personnel issues or the substance of that complaint, but I will once again note.
I'm not going to talk about anything negative, but I'm going to give you some positive stuff. She's got everything prepared there. This is what this press conference is and what they'll continue to be. Whatever that guy just said about the whistleblower complaint, I missed the very beginning of it, but I think that's where he was going with that. She's going to say, I'm not going to talk about the president's private conversation. I'm not going to talk. What I do want to address is, and then positive.
No, you mentioned masks, 70 million plus delivered. And again, that's 3 times the amount used by healthcare providers in any given year. So we've done a rather good job when it comes to supplies.
Back to the question about teachers and what the president said earlier about keeping those who are 60 or older out of the classroom. What is the message to older Americans? Should they not do anything, not leave their homes until there is a vaccine? Or what would the president have them do if they're not allowed to teach because of their age?
Well, our task force has said that vulnerable communities like our seniors should shelter in place. That being said, we encourage every American, if you have a symptom that is pressing, that you need to go to your doctor. I've been disturbed to read many quotes from doctors, stories of people who are staying home with chest pain and don't go to the hospital when they could be on the verge of having a heart attack, who are missing important appointments like mammograms, screenings like colonoscopies. It's important that we as Americans continue to go to our doctors to get medically necessary procedures, and when we have symptoms that need to be addressing, like chest pain, that you do go to your doctor. So if seniors need to go to their doctors, make sure to call your healthcare provider, go see your healthcare provider, go to the hospital should you have a symptom like that. Chanel?
Okay, excellent answer. I'm nothing but fair. Good answer, Kayleigh Mcenany. Very solid.
Thank you, Secretary McEnany. So going back to a topic about the House, in a separate chamber, Acting DNI Rick Grinnell has stated this week that he is prepared to release about 6,000 pages worth of transcripts relating to Adam Schiff's probe. Can you confirm whether or not...
Is this OAN? Did she say who this was? Because this is a nonsense question.
The executive branch is conducting any kind of investigation into House members for potentials of wrongdoing, or is that something you can comment on yet?
Yeah, I don't have any information on that subject matter. That's the first time hearing of that.
So I can just go back to Jeff's question about Dr. Fauci and then the president's statement that there are too many Trump haters in the House. I mean, does the White House really believe that you can decide to have officials testify in the Republican-controlled Senate but not testify in the Democratic-controlled House? Doesn't the House have legitimate oversight and a legitimate really responsibility, not just the authority, but responsibility to have somebody like Anthony Fauci testify?
Will Dr. Fauci?
Okay, so really a great question from Jonathan Karl, ABC News. Hey, doesn't the Congress, the House, have oversight over the executive branch? Checks and balances. And this is what the Republicans universally say on this, is like, Dr. Fauci apparently has not been given permission to go before the Congressional Oversight Committee, the one set up specifically for the coronavirus. Actually, I could be wrong on that. It could be just the regular Oversight Committee. I don't know. Anyway, he's not going before the House, which is democratically controlled. He is going before the Senate, and so she'll punch the Senate here. Watch.
Be questioned by Democrats in that Senate hearing?
Yes, he will be. So why? But are you saying that? So
she already said
legitimate really responsibility, not just the authority, but responsibility to have somebody like Anthony Fauci testify.
Will Dr. Fauci be questioned by Democrats in that Senate hearing?
Yes, he will be. So why? But are you saying that? So the Senate's fine, the House has no role in oversight?
The House needs to act in good faith. We don't have time in the middle of a pandemic for publicity stunts. It's not the time for that. It's not the place for that.
So congressional oversight is a publicity stunt.
In the course of 3 phone calls, you should be able to give the subject matter to ensure it's.
I just want to get within 6 feet of Jonathan Karl and give him a hug. Listen to his voice. But you're insane.
Has no role in oversight?
The House needs to act in good faith. We don't have time in the middle of a pandemic for publicity stunts. It's not the time for that. It's not the place for that. In the course of 3 phone calls, you should be able to give the subject matter to ensure it's the best use of Dr. Fauci's time. As you yourself noted, in the Republican-controlled Senate, Dr. Fauci will indeed be asked questions by Democrats.
Is the subject matter a mystery?
As you yourself noted, after I asked you directly, because you answer questions.
Yeah.
Kayleigh, in a previous life, before you were press secretary, you worked for the campaign, and you made a comment, I believe, on Fox, in which you said President Trump will not allow the coronavirus to come to this country.
Okay, I've seen this part right here, and this is the douchiest of all douche moves. So he asked her about this insane statement that she made while she was on Fox Business just a couple of months ago. I'm going to play that for you. And it is batshit crazy. I'm going to play it for you. And right away, she looks down and starts looking for her notes. She's got this all prepared. She's an idiot, but she's smart. Watch her look down here and get that piece of paper. This is what the entire press conference has been. What sort of questions might they ask? And I'll be honest, I think about that too. What sort of questions will be asked of the next presser? And as the day goes along, I go ahead and grab things that I think might come up and put them into this system, the broadcast system that I'm using right now, the software, so that I can show them to you when they come up. For example, I figure they're going to be talking about testing. Let's show them the United States versus Korea. So this is just prep work on her part. But it's insidious. watch what she does with this here, and we're going to go through it piece by piece. This is what you're paying for, folks. And if you're not paying, go to KevinlyFather.com, where you can sponsor me and enable me to do the fine work I'm doing, not here, other places. But some people have seen this, some people don't. For the people that haven't seen this, I'm going to play the full version of what she says.
Looking at the coronavirus and the president saying, look, we're not going to take people in from China right now. I mean, isn't it just a matter of protecting us, our national security really being at stake? And he's sort of the last line of defense there. Or first line, I should say.
Absolutely. This president will always put America first. He will always protect American citizens. We will not see diseases like the coronavirus come here. We will not see terrorism come here. And isn't that refreshing when contrasting it with the awful presidency of President Obama?
Kayleigh Mcenany, thank you so much. Good to see you tonight.
Thank you.
Yeah, big smile and thank you. The president will not allow the coronavirus into our country. Unlike Obama.
Is the subject matter a mystery? I mean,
Kayleigh, in a previous life, before you were press secretary, you worked for the campaign. And you made a comment, I believe, on Fox, in which you said President Trump will not allow the coronavirus to come to this country.
Getting it ready?
Given what has happened since
ladies
then,
and gentlemen.
obviously, would you like to take that back?
Well, first, let me note, I was asked a question on Fox Business about the president's travel restrictions. I noted what was the intent behind those travel restrictions, which is we will not see the coronavirus come here. We will not see terrorism come here, referring to an earlier set of travel restrictions. I guess I would turn the question back.
That is not what she did, and you just saw that. But she did say that the coronavirus would not be allowed to come here. Anyway, here we go. But this is where it gets super douche.
On Fox Business about the president's travel restrictions. I noted what was the intent behind those travel restrictions, which is we will not see the coronavirus come here. We will not see terrorism come here, referring to an earlier set of travel restrictions. I guess I would turn the question back on the media.
Because, douche.
And ask similar questions. Does Vox want to take back that they proclaim that the coronavirus would not be a deadly pandemic?
Actually, I'm glad you asked that. I would like to show you, Kayleigh Mcenany, that Fox did take that back and even issued a tweet. We have deleted a tweet from January 31st that no longer reflects the current reality of the coronavirus story. For the latest on Vox's coverage, please go here. So yes, they have taken that back. So I'm really glad she asked. Let's move on.
Does the Washington Post want to take back that they told Americans to get a grip? The flu is bigger than the coronavirus?
Now, this one pisses me off, and there's a couple of reasons why. She's leaving out part of the headline disingenuously, and she's leaving out part of the headline that's the greatest part of the headline. Let's take a look at that story. Get a gripe, America. Gripe is another name for the flu, for influenza. The flu is a much bigger threat than the coronavirus, for now. So she leads out the for now. In other words, it's a story about getting your flu shot and and they didn't know how big the coronavirus was going to get. You can have a bone of contention there. But for the love of God, get a gripe? That's awesome. Use that. And that's but she says it was get a grip because, get a grip, America. No. He was being clever. I think it's a he. Let's see who wrote that. Lenny Bernstein, health correspondent with the Washington Post. Get a gripe, America. I would marry that man for that headline. Going back to Kayleigh.
Does the Washington Post likewise want to take back that our brains are causing us to exaggerate the threat of the coronavirus?
I got to be honest. I don't know what she's talking about there. It's probably some article in the Washington Post about psychology or whatever. I couldn't find it. I'm not going to waste too much time on that.
Does the New York Times want to take back that fear of the virus may be spreading faster than the virus itself?
Well, let's take a look at that. No, let's take a look at the mascots that I want from the North Korean. I was going to say volleyball. North Korean. I got the Times here somewhere. Okay. So when I went to the article on that, it went away. Okay, so instead you've got the South Korean baseball, which is, I'll submit that. But the New York Times article Kayleigh is referring to here, they actually quoted a doctor. It wasn't the Times saying that. They quoted the doctor saying, what she's saying. Let's go back and watch that again.
Was bigger than the coronavirus? Does the Washington Post likewise want to take back that our brains are causing us to exaggerate the threat of the coronavirus? Does the New York Times want to take back that fear of the virus may be spreading faster than the virus itself? Does NPR want to take back that the flu was a much bigger threat than the coronavirus? And finally, once again, the Washington Post.
And at that time, yeah, the NPR article is... it's in here somewhere. That's the problem when I keep doing stuff. Okay, I must have clicked out of that as well. But yeah, they said the same thing all the other articles said, that right now the virus doesn't look as bad as it could be, but it could get a lot worse. But you should also go ahead and get your flu shot, everybody. So trying to stress to the fact that Americans need to get the flu shot. And one of the reasons is anytime you get a respiratory disease, pneumonia can set in, and bacteria that cause pneumonia, and again, I'm not a doctor, bacteria that cause other conditions get into the system when your immune system is weak and you die. In fact, the Spanish flu that Donald Trump thinks happened in 1917 happened in 1918. More people died from bacterial infections than from the Spanish flu itself. That's what we're told anyway. Oh, wait, you know what? I know there's another NPR story. Let me listen here for a second.
That they proclaim that the coronavirus would not be a deadly pandemic. Does the Washington Post want to take back that they told Americans to get a grip, the flu is bigger than the coronavirus? Does the Washington Post likewise want to take back that our brains are causing us to exaggerate the threat of the coronavirus? Does the New York Times want to take back that fear of the virus may be spreading faster than the virus itself? Does NPR want to take back that the flu was a much bigger threat than the coronavirus? And finally, once again, the Washington Post, would they like to take back that the government should not respond aggressively to the coronavirus?
Yeah, that article. Let's see if I've got it. Yeah, I do. What they were talking about there is that the government shouldn't do things like they did in 1900 in San Francisco, where there was an outbreak of the plague, and the government of San Francisco, the local officials there, decided that all the Chinese immigrants should be inoculated with an untested vaccine, which then the courts said, no, you can't do that. And then they put up containment zones around the Chinese areas in San Francisco. That's what that argument was about. That's the kind of government aggressive action that that article is talking about. So I don't know. I don't think that we should inoculate people of other races with untested vaccines. We already have all those volunteers who are storming the Capitol buildings in Michigan. Use them if you're going to use untested vaccines. They're pretty much volunteering to be tested for the vaccines because, you know, everybody needs tattoos right now. Here's where it gets even douchier. So we'll go back for a second. All those articles that she wants taken back, she's not going to answer about whether she wants to take back, saying that the coronavirus will not come back. We're going to go back 15 seconds, and here comes the douchiest move of any press secretary. Sean Spencer saying it's the biggest crowd of all time for an inauguration, period, doesn't even compare. That's not even the same Korean baseball ballpark.
The virus may be spreading faster than the virus itself. Does NPR want to take back that the flu was a much bigger threat than the coronavirus? And finally, once again, the Washington Post, would they like to take back that the government should not respond aggressively to the coronavirus?
No, they should
I'll
not.
leave you with those questions, and maybe you'll have some answers in a few days.
Yep. Kayleigh,
Thank you very much.
You were prepared for that. But the question's out to you, Secretary.
So she folds up the book and she leaves with that. Hey, Kayleigh, you said something absolutely insane. Would you like to take it back? Here's the response. Actually, yes. I was thinking at that time that the coronavirus, given the information that we received from China and the World Health Organization, you can go ahead and blame somebody else and get away with it at that point. But then to read down your list, almost all of which are a misunderstanding of the articles themselves, asking if they want to take back, including some of them that had been taken back, and to fold up the book and walk away, drops the douche. That's it. That's our press secretary. She's almost on the same level as Donald Trump, except that she has no real power. But she's right up there in terms of douchiness. It's insane. So that's it for today. There might be more. I don't even know. I haven't been able to keep up. I've got other stuff going on today. But thank you all for watching. If you want to support the broadcast, go to KevinlyFather.com. You can pledge your life and money to me. Let me see what's going on in the chat room right now while you guys are catching up with me. Isn't his testimony in front of the Senate a publicity stunt then? Yeah, any testimony in front of Congress is a publicity stunt. Good point, Rich. Let's see. Stephanie, you do need to pay me more. Everyone needs to pay me more. I gotta say, though, that during these trying times when we're all on this together, it's the people that have been supporting me and going to KevinlyFather.com and pledging. I just get a sour feeling in my stomach every time I ask that. Actually, that's the kombucha. But I really appreciate it. It makes me feel like what I'm doing is somehow worthwhile, which is not a feeling we get very often as human beings. So I appreciate that. Thank you. Betty says they did not become press secretary after saying something completely ludicrous. Zero responsibility here. Yes. Betty, you can't. I can't. This whole day has been I can't. Since actually way before Election Day, because I said that Trump was going to win. And everyone's like, I hate you. I lost so many friends on Facebook because I said many times that we were in danger of having Trump win because, math. Yeah, Rich, later I'll think of something that rhymes with douche or not. That's next level douche right there. Kim, thank you for saying thank you. You're very welcome. Rich, you will see me soon, hopefully. I've got an audition, and as long as that audition doesn't make me stop doing this, actually, I'll be able to do some more until I get the part, because it's going to take a while to get the part. I don't even know how they're going to do it. How they're going to have me record. They're having me record the audition at home, which is not that unusual, but the way auditions are done now, which makes perfect sense, of course. But how are they going to shoot? I mean, I've got the green screen. I'm ready to go. I mean, really, commercial people, if you're watching, just hire me. I can be anywhere. I should have a slide prepared for, the background. So, there. Hold on. Hold on, commercial people. I'm fixing it. Look! Hey, everyone, come to Mount Rushmore with your family. See? See how believable that is? Hike up one of our trails and have fun with your family. Well, what I do is I spread this out, and move the camera back. So, yeah. We're having a wonderful time at Mount Rushmore, so you should too. Come on out for the fireworks. Basically sells itself. Thank you, Stephanie. Thank you for doing what you do. I just kind of had to belch quietly to myself there. Or toot, as we discussed earlier in this broadcast or the one earlier today. I don't even know. Okay, kids, I got a bunch of stuff to do. Love you all. Mean it. And I will see you later on. Be good. Be safe. And have something good for dinner. On me.